Hey everybody, my name's Steve Kelly. I'm the owner of TiConnector in the northwest corner of Montana. We're a manufacturer of ultra precision titanium hardware, and recently we've been contacted by just multiple law enforcement agencies, private citizens, everybody else that you can imagine to try and address the situation that's going on with optic screws. It's just become a total nightmare for a lot of people, and then on the other end of the spectrum, a lot of people are saying, what the heck are you even talking about? So today we're going to talk about optic screws. We're going to talk about how to properly install an optic onto a slide, both using a plate and not using a plate. We're going to start out with a Glock 23 MOS. Everything's clear. And we're going to show you how to go from taking off the dust cover to installing a plate, installing an optic, and what order that should go in. We're also going to look at a Glock 43X, which is basically a direct mount, has a little bit of a plate if you're not using certain optics. We'll talk about that when we get to it. And then lastly, we're going to show you how to direct mount an optic using a Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0 fueled by Ed Brown. And I got to say, this is a smoking hot platform for 9mm. I'm grateful that they let us borrow it to do this video with. So let's get started here with this Gen 523. And we're going to start out by taking off the cover plate. You need a good quality, and I stress a good quality T10 Torx driver, because not all tools are made the same. So spend a couple of extra dollars and not very expensive, get a good quality driver, and it'll save you a lot of problem. You're going to remove the screws in the dust cover. And under that, you're going to find the MOS slide cut. The same screws that used the dust cover, those holes are what's going to attach your plate. And I'm going to stop here for a minute because, you know, when we first started thinking about optic screws, we were real reluctant to do it because there's just so many different platforms, and all the different platforms we look at today are going to be totally different from one another. And anytime you change platform, optics, they require different screws, and not all screws are made the same. Different shoulder angles, different lengths, different styles. And it really makes a difference. What seemingly not a big deal has become a big issue. So we're gonna start out with this. We're gonna mount a plate, because the Glock MOS system runs a plate, and then whatever optic you use mounts to the plate. And the plates all mount the same. However, the holes that are drilled and the alignment for different optics are in different places, so you have to have the right plate depending on which optic you're going to use. Today we happen to be using a TiConnector RMR, and therefore we're going to use a plate that's machined for the Glock MOS and a TiConnector RMR. And I want to stop for just a second too while we're on that subject and talk about plates. Any plate will work, but again, a quality plate is where you want to be at some point. If all you can afford to do is go out and buy a cheap aluminum Glock plate for $30, you can leaf mount your optic. But if you're going to start shooting and want to rely on your gun and it's going to save your life someday, put the money into a good quality plate. We partner with 1171. They are out of Tennessee. He 100% machines all of his plates from titanium. The tolerances are unbelievable, and anytime you can take stacking tolerances away from one another, you're going to give yourself a better opportunity to be successful. So most people want to just take the plate, stick the plate on, screw it down, put your optic on, screw it down, and you're done. But the reality of everything is the way you really need to do this is you need to mount your optic to your plate first. And I know, you mount your optic to your plate, how do you mount the optic to the gun? The reason why you want to mount your optic to your plate first is so that you can do an inspection before you've got everything covered up to where it can't be inspected. We're doing this just as a kind of to show you. You don't want your screw to protrude out even a little bit beyond the bottom of the plate. You need your screw, you know, in a perfect world, your screw would be perfectly flush with the bottom of the plate. Unfortunately, most plates, especially the less expensive plates, they're not the same thickness. We build our screws for 100 thousandths thick plate because that's what they're advertised at. There are certain brands of plates that are very inexpensive that are actually manufactured for certain guns that I've measured 50 of them and never gotten one that is exactly 100 thousandths, and rarely get two that are the same. So always, always, always check your screws. Even if you're using our screws, check your screws. They need to be below flush. We make ours about 5 thousandths below flush. But even 20 thousandths below flush is better than 2 thousandths too long. And if they are too long, you need to either send them back, get different screws, or you need to file those screws down to where they're gonna sit below flush. So the last thing that you wanna have happen is you wanna mount your optic down to the plate and you wanna have your screws protruding out. I mean, this is overkill just to show you guys, but the reality is if they're protruding out 2 or 3 thousandths, what it's gonna cause is when you tighten those screws down, it's going to cause your plate to cantilever, and if you cause your plate to cantilever, it's going to cause pressure against the screws that are holding your plate down, and you're going to have failures. I mean, we've seen it. We just got done dealing with a law enforcement agency that all their guns were failing. And the reason that they were failing was because the plate screws were breaking, and the reason the plate screws were breaking was because the mounting screws for the optic were about 3 or 4 thousandths too long, and it was causing pressure against them, and it was just causing everything to fatigue. So always, always, always check. Make sure that when you mount your optic to your plate, that your screws aren't protruding out. Today we're going to use our screws. Of course, we've designed, engineered, built, tested our screws for all the different platform specific things. Every different gun, every different optic has a platform specific screw. We manufactured them with a taller head that gives you more clearance for your Torx drive. We also manufactured them out of US made grade 5 titanium, and you can't get a better material for this than that, I don't believe. So no matter what screw you're using, test it. Even ours, test it first. Make sure that your screw doesn't protrude, that it's flush or under. After you've done that for both sides, then you can move forward. We're gonna use this 1171 Designs plate, manufactured 100% in the USA, which we're a huge fan of. USA manufacturing, USA materials support American families, American jobs, and American companies. Anyway, that being said, so again, you want to put your plate on. And these are a little short M3 screw, folks, that go in this Glock, so it doesn't take very much Loctite or threadlocker or Vibratite or whatever you want to use. I mean, literally 1 to 2 little dot drops right there down one side of it. That's all you need. Man, these plates are machined so tight. They're so awesome. The tolerances are great. Thread one side in, not quite snug. Thread the other side in, just snug. Go back, just snug. This is a torque driver. Don't confuse it with a Torx bit, which all of these screws run in a T10 Torx bit, but you still need the torque driver to get your torque of your screw correct. So once you've got everything snug, tighten it till it clicks. Tighten it till it clicks, and you're done. That step's finished. Next thing you're gonna do, pretty obvious, optic fits onto the plate. Again, one drop. Doesn't matter how long your screw is. You don't have to use more thread locker because your screw's longer. One drop of thread locker. Not quite snug. One drop of thread locker. just snug, snug, back to your torque driver. Take it down till it clicks. And that's it. You're done, you're ready to go. A lot of people say, well, I don't need a Torx driver, I just snug mine down and they're good enough. Over tightening them is just as bad as under tightening. Causes fatigue to the screws. So go out, invest the money. You just spent $1,000 or more right here, so you might as well go out and spend the money and get yourself a, at worst case scenario, a $30 Torx driver. So next we've got, this is a Glock 43X, and it's a little bit unique maybe because the Glock 43X is milled in the MOS with 4 bosses, and that's basically more of an RMR type of a situation. So if you're gonna run a Holosun on this, you can't mount the Holosun direct because the Holosun is only built for 2 bosses, the 2 bosses in the front. So there's a couple different options. Some people choose to file these back bosses off. I don't recommend you ever alter your firearm in any way. Or you can buy a spacer plate. Basically the spacer plate, it's different than the plate we did before because this is still basically a direct mount optic. All this spacer plate right here does is it covers up the 2 bosses in the back, gives you 2 bosses in the front, allows your Holosun or Vortex, you know, those types of styled optics to sit flush. And then from there it's basically just a direct mount. So the 2 things that you want to do on this are you want to make sure that when you tighten it down, if you're using those cheap Chinese screws, they're not too long, because if they're too long, then they're going to interfere with the extractor and you're going to have a whole different problem, probably worse than if you worry about your optic screws breaking. And you can feel it. If you start tightening it down and your screws aren't snugging up the way they're supposed to snug up and they start getting tight, it's probably getting into your extractor and you need to measure it. Some screw people, they say, oh, well, we're gonna give you a long screw to go on one side and a short screw to go on the other side. Well, that doesn't really solve anything either. So what we've done with our screws is we've manufactured them to be specific to the gun and give you about 5 thousandths of clearance so you get maximum thread engagement, but you're not having to worry about getting into the extractor. And really that's about all there is to it. Again, 1 to 2 at the most drops a Loctite. Just snug them down with a regular driver and use your Torx driver to take them down to torque, and you're good to go. I mean, it's really that simple with this platform, and it gets even simpler with a true direct mount. So we're gonna go ahead and finish up today with just a standard direct mount plate or direct mount optic. There isn't really no plate. You can or cannot use a dust cover depending on what you want, but we're gonna mount it on this Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0 Ed Brown Fuel Series gun, which again, like I said earlier, it's an awesome piece of equipment. If you haven't had a chance to pick one up, hold it, fire it, do whatever you can to, because you'll definitely be glad that you did. So basically, if you're gonna run the dust cover goes on. Your optic sits down over top of the dust cover. And if you're using our screws, they're already set up to be the right length. If you're using somebody else's screws, you just want to make sure they're not too long, and you want to thread them in. If they start to bottom out somewhere before you get the optic snug, your screws are too long. Throw them away, go get some good screws. And take them down just a little bit snug. Again, always use a Torx driver. And that's basically it. That's how to mount optic plates and optics to different handguns in a nutshell. So folks, today our goal in this whole video is to teach people how to, or maybe help reinforce how to install your optic in different formats onto your firearm. We're not here to sell you screws. We'd love to sell you screws, but we're not here today to sell you screws. There's probably a lot of people out there going, yeah, I don't need good screws. Maybe you don't. But here's what I will tell you is you don't need to wear your seatbelt either until you're in a crash and wish you had your seatbelt on. I was in law enforcement for 15 years and I never had an optic screw break. But yet we have law enforcement agencies coming to us every week now saying that this is an epidemic and we need to have a solution. So we resisted doing optic screws. It's so many different lengths, sizes, combinations of screws that it just is, it's a nightmare. But the bottom line is when our friends started coming to us saying that we need a solution, we came up with a solution. So if you're out there saying, I don't need optic screws, I can use the cheap Chinese screws that come with this gun, I'm not here to sell you optic screws. If you're saying I want to have the best possibility of surviving an incident that may cost me my life that I can have, you need to think about optic screws just like you need to think about a quality handgun and a quality optic. So that's about it. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, leave a comment below and we'll try and get to it just as quick as we can. And if you have any questions or want to check out what we're currently doing and having available, go to TiConnector.com and click on the optic screws page. Have a great day.